We looked at when you were doing call tracking on directory listings versus call tracking on ads.
Mm-hmm.
And the ads pay for themselves. So there's no question there. They're paying for themselves. They're getting the branding and the click-throughs to the website. But the call tracking in the directory listings, which directory listings are free, equated to, in a 30-day period, $245,000 in confirmed surgeries.
Yep.
So $245,000 to the bottom line of the practice because we focused on the directory listings and then we tracked it to make sure it was performing like we wanted.
Yeah, so that wound up being about 27% of total calls for that practice
We're from those directory
from
listings.
those listings, and it resulted in 700 new patients.
700 new patients.
Just from the directory listing.
Hey there, welcome to the Dr. Marketing Tips Show. I am Jennifer.
I'm Corey.
And today, what are we talking about, Corey?
We're talking about online reviews and directory listings.
Yeah, I feel like we've been talking about online reviews for years and years and years.
Yeah, well, we have because people continually use them to find
So do I.
Yeah, exactly. To find their physicians,
Favorite restaurants,
lunch, whatever. But what we're finding and what some research is starting to tell us is that there's a shift happening. It's just starting. And so the shift is, in the past, some people didn't pay attention to reviews. So if you did, you kind of had a leg up just because you were ahead of the game, right? So it was easy. It was like, well, I have 55 stars. My competitor down the street has 4, so nothing to worry about. Well, now your competitor down the street has enabled some sort of software partner just like you have, most likely. They have a bunch of reviews and you have a bunch of reviews. So now what sets you apart even more, and what the research is starting to tell us, is it's the accuracy of the directory listing. So it's not just the star rating and the star quantity, it's how accurate is this listing and does it have whatever information I'm looking for at a glance, which is where you can still make headway over your competitor.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've got reviews and you have review fatigue. So if you're looking at the number of reviews that you're getting on a month-to-month basis, if you're not paying to have some extra reviews, some extra juice, chances are you're growing still, but it's ever so slightly as compared to before. You'd be getting double-digit increases. Now you might be getting 1 or 2 extra. And I'm talking about when we're sending a lot of invites, we're getting a lot less reviews. And those reviews are still equally as important as they were before, except now, people kind of assume everybody has really good reviews at this point and that everybody's on top of it.
Right. It's one of those things where it's like, and obviously every case is unique, so I want to preface by saying that, but it can get to a point of diminishing returns because let's say you've got 500 5-star reviews and your competitor has 350. Well, to the average patient, you're going to look at both and go, I mean, I guess the one with 500 it would be good, but this one, 350 is also pretty good, so I'm going to go wherever I can get in faster.
That's right. And how are people looking for these reviews? So chances are they're looking on their phone, and they're looking when they require it. And so what's happening is, and I can use the restaurant example because I just did it. I want to figure out a place to go to lunch. I'm not willing to go to any lunch that's under a 4.5 star, and it better have a lot of pictures, and it better be very highly rated, and just got to be. Because I'm not wasting my one lunch a day on a bad activity. So
not wasting these calories on mediocre.
So the first thing I do is I go to my phone and I type in whatever lunch near me, and I want to look at proximity, which is the exact same thing they're doing for your medical practice. And the first thing that pops up is the first thing I'm going to click into, and I'm going to scroll. I might go down like 3 to 4. And then if I can make a reservation online, same as can I make an appointment online, can I call the practice online, and can I map it?
I got a stat for you there. 63% prefer to book an appointment digitally, which you can do on Google now.
That's exactly the case. So it's no longer just a review or just your website. Now you have this layer, this web of interconnectivity. And so you can't just be focused on reviews or just focused on your website. Now you have to be focused on all the things that are connecting your entire reputation, your online profile together.
Right. And like you were starting to say there, you look at photos and some of the ancillary information that's on there. And I think what's happened, and I mean, we've seen it with practices that we work with, is that the directory listings have changed, specifically on Google, which is, the number 1 search engine.
Still?
Yeah. For what we're talking about right now, it's number 1. And you can now book an appointment. You can list your insurances out. You can list your subspecialties. You can categorize your doctors 2 to 3 categories deep, which is something that you couldn't do like 16 months ago.
No.
So again, if you're just paying for someone to get reviews, so is your competitor. But the difference is going to be if you can go in and really build out these, these listings and these profiles. That's where you can really make the headway now, because again, we all know that 93% of users say a review will impact their decision. Like, we get that, so everyone's ahead of that. The real game changer is how easy are you making it for them, and then how good does your practice look in those listings. Now, I will say that for Google, they will accept photos from pretty much anybody. Because
we see this all the time.
Yeah, exactly, and they want authoritative, but they also want it to be real. So you, as the business owner, you can claim it, and then you can add photos, which is great. But I think one of the most recent ones I was looking at was an ophthalmology practice, and someone was in the waiting room, and I don't know what they were trying to take a picture of, but they took a picture of like their shorts and their knee, and they posted it on the profile of this ophthalmology practice.
And of course, they want it removed.
Right, and it wound up being the second photo. So when you look at whatever their name is, they've got their nice, beautiful photo of the lobby, and then this random dude's knee. And of course they want that removed, but it's a process to get that removed, because that was like a verified Google user, and it's a whole thing.
It goes back to, there was a time about a year ago where I think you and I were there together, and we were doing a presentation at an ophthalmology practice, and they wanted to go through these reviews, like go through the Google listings.
They wanted to pull it up on the screen in the boardroom and go through it,
in front of everybody. And there was Grandma and her grandson and her husband all having dinner and lunch, and there were some personal photos. Well, Grandma didn't know how to properly upload photos, so she uploaded them to the wrong thing, and it became this whole thing, like her family photos were the profile.
Right.
And I think it was another 6 months before any of that got removed.
Yeah, yeah.
And I know this is important to practices out there, because we have 2 right now who have requested to engage with us just to clean up these directory listings. It's one thing like, oh, I think I've got my hands around, like I've got a handle on like getting my doctor claim right on this one website, or I have a service and I'm claimed right over here. But then holy hell, an update happens and everything's upside down, and then I have duplicate listings, which is always
very
a thing.
common.
And now I find that we're doing more and more contracts with just cleaning up listings because of the importance.
Yeah, what'll happen with those duplicate listings, for example, is let's say you've got Dr. Jones, and Dr. Jones goes to 3 of your offices. What will happen sometimes is Google will create a Dr. Jones.
On his own.
Yeah, on his own. Then you'll have Dr. Jones at office number 1, Dr. Jones at office number 2, and Dr. Jones at office number 3. Plus the office has its own as well.
But Google won't tell you they're doing that. They're trying to help the users.
Right.
So they're creating additional directory listings for Dr. Jones, and before you know it, it's out of control.
Mm-hmm. Right, which is why you always have to kind of keep one eye peeled and looking at these things, or you have, get with a software partner who is able to kind of help you manage those kinds of things. And then not only make sure that the listings are accurate, they're up to date. If you are not doing any sort of Google advertising, then it may make sense, and we did this for an orthopedic practice. We put a call tracking number on it.
Yes. If you wonder if this stuff's worth it,
if it's really worth it,
this is what's going to tell you.
Yeah, this is what you should do. So you put a number on the listing, and this number just forwards to the regular number, so if the person calling can't tell the difference. But what happens is you're able to then scrape that data and say, oh wow, okay, so now I can see that 600 people clicked on this button in the last 2 weeks. And depending on the call tracking service that you use, you're going to get some very basic HIPAA compliant info from that. And then you can say, okay, so these are the people that called. Well, let me go in and look at my new appointment list, and let me see how many of those turned into new patients. And then right there, if you know your average value for a patient, your average lifetime value, you can equate how important this is immediately. Do that for 30 days and you'll know the difference that this is making.
And we know this to be the case because we did it for an ortho practice, and we looked at when you were doing call tracking on directory listings versus call tracking on ads. and the ads pay for themselves. So there's no question there. They're paying for themselves. They're getting the branding and the click-throughs to the website. But the call tracking in the directory listings, which directory listings are free, equated to, in a 30-day period, $245,000 in confirmed surgeries.
Yep.
So $245,000 to the bottom line of the practice because we focused on the directory listings and then we tracked it to make sure it was performing like we wanted.
Yeah, so that wound up being about 27% of total calls for that practice
We're from those directory
from
listings.
those listings, and it resulted in 700 new patients.
700 new patients.
Just from the directory listings.
And that's patients. 245,000 was the surgical dollars
Right.
that came in as a result of those 700 patients.
Right. So in other words, if
Stop what you're doing and go make sure your directory listings are current.
yeah, exactly.
That's what other words
exactly,
means.
because if you're listening to this and you've ever listened to us in the past, you probably already have a solution in place for reviews, but you probably don't have a solution in place for the directory listings to make sure that those are up to date. So stop what you're doing, do an audit, and make sure that you have all your ducks in a row here.
Yeah, and I would say too, like if you find a solution that's completely automated that you can be 100% hands off, drop us a line and let us know, because we've not found a perfect solution yet. And in fact, you find solutions where it will, probably through automation or through AI, will take a practice and like create a category and put it in and maybe do some basic stuff. But unless you really know what you're doing and you kind of know what's going on in the practice, it's very difficult to maintain.
Well, and they are always changing. I mean,
Yeah,
we just
absolutely.
said that Google just rolled out a bunch of new functionality. So if you do have a partner, they don't have an API built for whatever the new thing is that you can now do that you couldn't do 2 weeks
That's
ago.
exactly the case.
And then one other thing I wanted to mention was people ask all the time. They're like, okay, well, you guys talk about Google a lot. Like, is that the only one I should be concerned with? If you have limited time, okay, because it is number one. But is it the only one? Absolutely not. Especially if your patients are a little bit older, you can do this exact same thing on Bing.
Which is probably not a bad idea when you consider the leverage, like the momentum that Microsoft is gathering right now.
Right. Yeah, because they just built in ChatGPT into Bing on the mobile and on the desktop side. So yeah, absolutely. And then also if your patient is a little bit older, they are most likely going to use a Windows computer, which defaults to Microsoft Edge as the browser, which opens up to Bing. So the directory listings in Bing are not as in-depth as they are as Google, but the same rules still apply. So you're still going to have reviews there, so is your competitor, but you can still go in and update those listings to be better.
Yeah. So moral of the story, get on top of your directory listings.
Absolutely.
There you go. All right, with that, I'm Jennifer.
I'm Corey.
We'll see you next time on the Dr. Marketing Tips Show. Thanks a bunch.
Bye, guys.
If you want more like this, hit like and subscribe so you'll always be alerted to new episodes when they come out. And if you want information about us, visit us over at insightmg.com. That's insightmg.com. We'll see you on the next episode.